and outreach librarian in special collections. And this week, our Wednesday outreach program is my colleagues Megan Badgley Malone and Jenny Russell from the MSU University Archives and Historical Collections. And they are the experts on MSU history, and they're going to share with us photos and stories about MSU icons, some of the campus things that are iconic to MSU, like Sparty and Beaumont Tower. So we have 40 people signed on already. That's awesome. I know that a couple more people will trickle in after we get started, maybe a lot more people. So I will turn it over now to Jenny and Megan.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Let me share the screen. Okay, so my name is Jenny Russell. I'm the acting records manager at the University Archives.
Hi, I'm Megan Badgley Malone. I'm the Collections and Outreach Archivist at the University Archives and Historical Collections.
Okay, and today we are going to be, like Ruth Ann said, we're going to be talking about MSU Icons and our virtual pop-up exhibit. So these are the topics we're going to be covering today. We're going to talk about the Rock, everybody's favorite, the Dairy Store. College Hall and Beaumont Tower will be combined as one big topic, Sparty, Spartina, and then the Spartan Statue. You can put questions into the Q&A and the chat if you want, but the Q&A would be the best place for that. Ruth Ann will be monitoring the Q&A, but we're going to try to wait to do questions at the very end so we can get at least through the whole presentation, then we can do some question and answers. So me and Megan are going to be going back and forth between the topics, so we'll have to stop sharing our screen and we'll redo it again. So just so you all know, that's what's happening. So let's get started. So we're going to be talking about this, to begin, the Rock. So the Rock is a class gift from the class of 1873. The 18,000-year-old pudding stone was pulled from the Delta, which is the triangular piece of land that's at the corner of Michigan and Grand River Avenues. I know it used to be a 7-Eleven. I know it's something else now, but it was pulled from that area. This land was originally part of MSU and was first used for growing crops and pasteurizing stock. And over the years, it's been used for faculty housing, so it's changed hands over times and uses. Reported on May 7th of 1873, the Academic Senate records, the seniors of 1873 requested the Faculty Academic Senate if they could place a large stone on the college lawn. Their request was granted, and a special committee consisting of MAC President Abbott, Dr. Miles, and Professor Beal were charged to help the seniors with a location selection. A week later, and President Abbott reported the seniors were given 4 possible locations for the Rock. I tried finding where maybe these other 3 locations were, but I couldn't find anything. It was decided to be placed in a grove of evergreen trees. The giant stone was hauled to its original home in the sacred space near where Beaumont Tower would later be built by a team of oxen. The stone, as it originally was called, was and I just like to point out, take notice how in the background, the trees are going to start to thin out, and it's just, you'll see them get bigger and then they start to thin away. Just, it's interesting to see the passage of time in it. So this is a close-up of the Rock. In a grove of trees, the Rock found its home for the next 112 years. The class gift had the words Class 73 chiseled onto the front of the stone, but the man that's chiseled the word class spelled it incorrectly with only 1 S. When he added the second S, he cut out a little piece of stone at the left side of the word to help make it appear more symmetrical. Dr. Robert Kedzie remarked on the situation by stating, "Curses, not loud but deep, on the head of the man who, if not sickly, had bad spells." So kind of see it just slightly because the ivy is covering it, but as you can see, there actually was something chiseled on the rock at one time before all the paint took over. So posing in front of the rock is not a new thing. This is a photo from the class of 1875, posing in front of the rock, and many more pictures I'll show you. People are posing in front of the rock. This is I like the next two pictures I'm going to show you. So this photo was from an alumni reunion in 1888 that included the female graduates. All these ladies are amazing, but two to point out, especially is Ava Corral from class of 1879 and Mary Mayo of 1881. Ava was the first female graduate from the university, and she's in the back row, right in the middle. And Mary Jane Cliff Merrill Carpenter earned many distinctions as a woman in the early years of the university. She was the second woman to earn her bachelor's degree in 1881. She was the first woman to earn an MS in 1886. She was the first female staff member on campus, and from 1883 to 1888, she was employed as the librarian at MAC. And she's also in the back row, second from the right, standing next to Ava. So it's a fun to see our first women graduates of the university. This is also a fun picture. This is the reunion photo from the class of 1873 who donated the rock. And doing research, I always wondered, who is the woman, this young woman in the back of the photo? And she is actually Margaret Kedzie, and she is the grand niece of Dr. Robert Kedzie. Her father, George Kedzie, was a nephew to Robert Kedzie and was part of the graduating class of 1873. George was a mining and geological engineer who spent most of his time working in Texas, New Mexico, and California. So Margaret was with her family on campus while her dad was away, and she stood in for this photo. So there were many Kedzies on the early campus of MAC. This photo is from the Cosmopolitan Club that was made up of the international students that were on campus. Back row, far left is Unmin Ling, whose collection we have at the archives, and it's a wonderful collection. And I also, a year or two ago, received a reference question from a researcher asking for more information on his grandfather, who happens to be in this photo, back row, third from the left. So I now know two different people in this photo. For the next 60 to 70 years, the rock remained as it was, untouched. But during the 1940s and 1950s, the rock was known as the engagement rock. If a guy wanted to propose, he would take his gal to the rock and pop the question. At some point in the rock's early history, a bench was added in front of the rock, and it was said that only engaged or married couples could sit on the bench. And in the yearbook, there were pictures of the bench, I believe, either from 23 or 28. And the bench has actually, there's been, I think, two different benches over time, but I couldn't find when those benches were added. And you can see in the photos, the trees are now much taller, and soon you're going to see they're even going to be thinning out less. So as times changed during the 1960s and 70s, the rock became a political platform and billboard for various groups. Many obscenities were written on the rock, and to some it was offensive. So to fix the situation, in September, brought in a crane to lift the rock and set it in front of the Department of Public Safety building in the hopes it would be safe from the added graffiti. About 35 people crowded around their workers and voiced their displeasure over the relocation. Due to the outcry, the rock was moved back to its original location the same day. This was done because the university wanted to take care of the complaints they received from the obscenities, and then the cost of having to sandblast the rock every time to remove the graffiti, which was about $400 to $600 each time just to move the rock. there and back in one day cost the university $500. And you can see we have many photos of people protesting in this area within the sacred circle next to the rock. And you can see Beaumont Tower in the back there. So I just like this photo. Again, you can see how the trees have thinned out behind it, you know, Big Ten champs of 77, 78. And in this photo, you can see that the tree's been spray painted on, and we even have other pictures of the sidewalk being spray painted. So that's partly why they wanted to move it. And relocating the rock. So the rock was moved from its original location to its now current location on Farm Lane next to the auditorium in September of 1985. It was moved because when people were painting the rock, like I showed you in that photo, they were painting the rocks, the trees, the bushes, and they didn't want that. So by moving the rock to the location of Farm Lane, it would be settled in a clearing where it was hoped other items would be free from damage, which more or less is the case now. And, you know, what's great, people still go to the rock, people still spray paint it, they still hold their events at it. People have, you know, they're taking their celebration photos. People have mourned at the rock. So, I mean, it really is, it's a big rock, but it really means so much to people. So that is a sort of a brief summary of the rock. So I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to pass the presentation on to Megan.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the dairy store. The dairy store is more than just a tasty treat on campus. It's really a marker of MSU's dedication to active learning. But before we can get into the history of the dairy store, we have to talk about the history of dairy science at MSU. So the first dairy cow at MSU was purchased in 1864 by Professor Manly Miles on behalf of the Agricultural College. By 1880, the dairy herd grew to between 12 or 15 cows. The following year, by 1880, the dairy herd had grown to somewhere between 12 to 15 cows. And by 1881, agriculture professor Samuel Johnson purchased the first Jersey cow. Despite being an agricultural college and having a dairy herd, we did not actually have a formal dairy science curriculum until 1893. In 1893, Clinton D. Smith was hired as a professor of agriculture. He developed the first dairy course, which was a special 2-week short course held in January 1894 during the winter break. It was divided into 5 subcourses: dairy practice and butter making, dairy chemistry, breeding, selecting and feeding dairy stock, judging and scoring butter, and a study of dairy literature. And this picture shows some of these first short course dairy students sometime in the 1890s. By 1896, 1897, aspects of the special course began to be incorporated into the general practical agriculture curriculum. The program grew quickly, and in 1900, the first academic dairy building was constructed. It's still on campus, and it's now known as Chittenden Hall. Also during this time period, the college had a cow named Belle Sarcastic, which may be the best cow name in the history of names. She set a world's record in 1897. She produced 23,190 pounds of milk and 722 pounds of fat in 1 year. She held this record for 11 years. And her son, Sarcastic Lad, was the grand champion at the St. Louis Exposition in 1903, and he became a noted sire of the breed. So on to the dairy store. The exact date of the first incarnation of the dairy store is a little difficult to nail down with certainty. The 1914 annual report of the college mentions that the new dairy building had a room where students sold dairy products. So in essence, a dairy store, but not necessarily the dairy store. So at the time, Michigan Agricultural College was producing, bottling, and selling their milk in East Lansing, along with butter and various kinds of creams and buttermilk. In the fall of 1921, the MAC Creamery began selling their products on a commercial basis to help their students gain knowledge in both making and selling quality dairy products. This was important to students who often came to college just to learn both making and selling dairy products. So as time passed, the dairy store grew to feel more like a franchise dairy parlor. During the 1950s and 60s, the dairy store prospered selling dairy products. By the end of the 1960s, local dairy farmers were afraid MSU had created kind of a monopoly in the area around East Lansing. So MSU agreed to kind of scale back their selling of products. So since that time, the dairy store slowly began to sell limited amounts of products like chocolate and vanilla ice cream. But the campus knew from experience that the best way to teach dairy students was by giving them hands-on experience in making and selling products. And so they began increasing their production. And today the dairy store uses milk from MSU cows to make their ice cream and cheese. And of course, every Spartan knows that the dairy store ice cream is the best. And you can see in this picture from the yearbook in 2013, kind of the modern day dairy store incarnation. All right, back to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Megan. Okay. Oh. Okay, next we're going to talk about College Hall and Beaumont Tower. When I was putting this together, I was going in chronological order, and obviously College Hall would have come first, but it's difficult to talk about either one of these buildings without having to reference the other. So it was just decided we were going to just put College Hall and Beaumont Tower together. So this is going to be about the biggest section for our presentation. So the driving force and mastermind of the newly formed college was John C. Holmes. Holmes was a merchant, member of the Detroit School Board, and a co-organizer of the Michigan State Agricultural Society. He believed that the new agricultural college should stand alone from other institutions. This caused some contention with the president of U of M, Henry P. Tappan, who wanted the agricultural college to be part of this university. After 2 years of debate, it was decided that the Ag College would be its own separate institution. After the Burr farm was bought, the land remained unsettled while members of the Board of Education decided which building should be built. Again, they turned to Holmes to submit building designs for the college. Holmes wanted to know what the course of studies would be, which would help dictate how the buildings would be laid out. For that reason, the board asked Holmes to create a course of study for the college. Holmes then drafted a generalized course of studies and asked for assistance from future professors, Professor Fisk and Dr. Henry Goodby. The board approved Holmes' building plan design and his course of studies outline. In the original design by Holmes, College Hall was actually supposed to be a central building and have two corresponding wings. But in the end, all we got was the west wing because of cost constraints. Unfortunately, College Hall was poorly constructed. Months into the construction, board members discovered that several doors wouldn't open, close, or lock. The floors were either uneven or shrunk, and they didn't reach the walls. Baseboards were loose, and the roof leaked so badly that the plaster on the walls fell apart. College Hall was supposedly finished in 1856, but because of the poor construction, the college was delayed from opening by several months because the board obviously wanted the contractors to fix these issues. It also wasn't until later that it was discovered that the foundation of College Hall lay on plank footings and that one corner of the basement foundation included a tree stump. And we have the blueprints for College Hall, and you can see this is the basement floor, and over in the right corner, they actually included in the blueprints pine stump. So that wasn't good planning on their part. So in spite of the poor construction, College Hall was dedicated on May 13th of 1857 inside College Hall's chapel and was the main educational building for the college from 1857 until 1870. The first floor consisted of the chapel and the chemical laboratory. The second floor held the president and secretary's office and classrooms. The third floor housed the original library, museum, botany room, and zoological room. For many years, the basement was storage for the horticultural department tools. With the addition of steam, heat, and electricity, additional classroom space was added in the basement. And you can see there was a little bit of clearing when they got the land to build the university, but the rest was mostly covered in trees. So you can see College Hall just surrounded by so many stumps, and that's something the students had to help with, was to remove stumps. This is a nice photo of College Hall. You can see where, MSU's seal logo, it's very similar to something like this from College Hall. It was soon discovered that along with its original faults, College Hall was not adequately built for the use of the classrooms. Dr. Beal described how College Hall was built with limited windows, which caused him to move to the third floor to get the best light possible when using microscopes. Dr. Kedzie also commented upon how the laboratory was lit with only 2 windows in the room and the tables had to be rearranged to get the best light. He also spoke about how poor the ventilation system was that was installed. As the years progressed, College Hall continued to be used for educational lessons while slowly deteriorating. On March 18th of 1914, motion by John Beaumont, who will become important later, he was part of the State Board of Agricultural, now known as the Board of Trustees, or the BOT for the rest of this presentation. He made a resolution to preserve College Hall. With that, many alumni voiced how important College Hall was to MAC, their memories, and how it should be turned into the Student Union building. Work began on College Hall, but was halted when it was discovered just how poor the original construction was. The bricks were discovered to be hollow inside, so it wasn't possible to fill the walls with concrete and reinforce with steel. In a letter to the BOT from University President Frank Kedzie, he described how, due to the demand of the War Department pushing for barracks to be created, plans for an alumni union were abandoned. It was hoped that College Hall would be revamped to house 250 men that were training to be automotive mechanics on campus. Kedzie wrote how the contractor stated, "It will be impossible to make a secure and safe building of Old College Hall to be used either for the purpose of barracks or as a home for the MAC Union. It seems as though it will be a useless expense to go further in the project or reconstruction." I like this photo. It's a nice panoramic view of campus. You can see the second Wells Hall over to the left, and in the bottom, you can see College Hall. And at the beginning, the roof is really bad, and you can just see over time how the roof's been repatched and redone. On August 12th of 1918 at 5 o'clock in the evening, large portions of the west and south walls of College Hall came crashing down. As fitting to the first building dedicated to agricultural education, when the walls came down, the Star-Spangled Banner could be heard in the distance from the drill grounds. Thankfully, the building was empty and nobody was hurt. Within the week, the rest of the building was raised. By the end of the year, a garage for 16 Army trucks was built on the site of College Hall, with sections of the old walls being used in the construction. The thought that a garage was standing on the foundation of College Hall outraged alumni. And once again, such alumni and former BOT member that was very upset by this was John Beaumont. So you can see it's not a particularly nice building. And here's one you can see with all background is Williams Hall. So, I mean, this was built immediately after College Hall came down. So this is the man that Beaumont Tower is named after. John Beaumont graduated from MAC in 1882. He studied law, which would lead to a prestigious career and senior membership at the firm of Beaumont, Smith, and Harris in Detroit. He was also a member of the BOT from 1912 to 1921. After seeing the treatment of the site of College Hall, something had to be done. At the time, with the collapse of College Hall and 2 dormitories that caught fire very close within the same time, the college was looking to build new buildings. Plans were being presented to place new buildings inside the campus circle. Even back in 1906, the idea of the sacred space to keep the campus circle free of buildings was presented. Once again, that sentiment was pushed forward with the Save the Circle campaign, and Beaumont presented his idea of a memorial tower to College Hall to replace the garage. But that plan, the idea to build other buildings in the sacred space, were discarded. In a small ceremony, the laying of the Beaumont Tower cornerstone was a statement by John Beaumont and 4 items he wished to be included, which were the 1882 college annual, the 1882 Class Day exercise program, the 1882 commencement program, and the 1882 7th alumni reunion program. Since Beaumont was a graduate of MAC in 1882, it was only fitting he wanted to include items from his graduation year. Construction of Beaumont Tower began in 1928 and was completed in 1929. The dedication ceremony took place on June 22nd of 1929. Beaumont could not attend the dedication due to an illness, so his friend, the Honorable William L. Carpenter, spoke about the gift on his behalf. Beaumont only saw this gift one time during his last visit to campus in 1937, but he did listen to the radio whenever the bells were supposed to be broadcast. In this photo, you can see standing pretty much in the middle, you can see band director Leonard Falcone, who this was his 2nd year teaching on campus, and sitting down, a whole bunch of men sitting down here, but you can also see MSC President Robert Shaw, present at the time, who was also the father-in-law to MSU President John Hanna. Oops, a little too fast. Okay. The tower is 104.67 feet tall at its highest spire. The sculpture on the tower is that of a sower with an inscription that reads, "Whatsoever a man soweth." The sower is a dedication to College Hall and the agricultural education that was first taught on campus. And this is right above like the entrance doors on the tower. At the time of dedication, there were only 10 bells at the tower, making it just a chime. Really large chime. The tower was originally supported by, of all things, the athletic department, with the first carillionaire being Russell Dalbert, an athletic trainer and swimming coach. The tower fell under the athletic department because it was hoped that the music would help promote MSU spirit in the athletes. Dalbert had such limited training that he was only able to play very simple melodies. It was also quickly discovered that the bells did not have the range to play MSU's alma mater song. A year later, in 1930, 3 more bells were added to help provide a greater range for the song. And in 1935, 10 more bells were added, which made the instrument no longer a chime, but a carillon. As the years passed, Westcott continued to perform numerous concerts at Beaumont Tower, but the tower was sadly falling into disrepair. Springs were breaking, clappers were flattening out, and the cables and beams were starting to rust out. In 1971, the tower was silent for 5 months just because a simple spring came loose. The longest that the carillon would be silent was from 1987 to 1996 because the bells were discontinued due to the wear and tear of the system. In 1988, a report was submitted to the provost's office with the cost and repairs, but the total cost repairs would not take place until 1995 because the provost's office wanted to seek private sources to make donations. The BOT approved more than $500,000 to renovate the tower in 1995. The tower itself was repaired, which included repainting the tower structure, updating the accessible entrance to the first floor entrance. Along with that, the clock numbers, hands, and clock mechanisms were replaced. Also, 2-note bells were added, 20 bells were replaced, and the bottom 27 bells were wired for partial automation. All the bells were removed and reattached in a new order that allows for more space. There are now a total of 49 bells, with the bells ranging from weight from 15 pounds to 2.5 tons. The rededication ceremony of Beaumont Tower took place on May 3rd of 1996. And today, it's still wired to chime, every 15 minutes. And obviously not this past summer, but other summers, they'll bring in guest conductors to play the carolyn, people from around the world. So, it's such a focal point. Now people propose in front of Beaumont Tower. So it's so important, like all the rest of these icons to the university. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Megan is going to discuss our Sparty mascot.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, everyone's favorite mascot, Sparty. Okay, the following history of Sparty was compiled by the Alumni Office. So big thank you to the Alumni Office for this information. The photographs are from the university archives. Our beloved mascot Sparty first appeared in 1955. He was originally a papier-mâché head created and worn by the Theta Xi fraternity members. The head was 6 feet tall and weighed over 60 pounds. Sparty made his debut during a pep rally at Jennison Fieldhouse in October 1955. And the picture here was taken a couple of weeks later during the 1955 homecoming, which was our centennial year, which was a very big deal. Very shortly after that, the heavy papier-mâché head was replaced by a lighter weight fiberglass model in 1956. Sparty's pictured here in Las Vegas with the Spartan Marching Band and its director, Leonard Falcone. Leonard Falcone is the guy next to Sparty holding the cowboy boots. Sparty and the Spartan Marching Band were traveling with the football team to California for the Rose Bowl game that year. In 1960, the MSU student government took over responsibility for the Sparty mascot. And here he's pictured in 1966 facing off against Purdue Pete. So in this picture, you can see that there were slight modifications made to Sparty during the 1960s. A more pronounced plume was added to the top of the helmet. This picture is from a game in 1969. And here's another version of Sparty from 1981. This one has more of a solid plume and a slightly different marking on the helmet. This picture also has a clearer view of the back part of the harness for the helmet. You can see the back part that provides support for the helmet. So by the mid-1980s, it was clear that Sparty needed an update. Inspired by the University of Wisconsin's Bucky Badger, drawings of a more buff Sparty were made by the Alumni Association's graphic designer. And those were employed more of like drawings, not necessarily the mascot. But inspired by those drawings, a group came together, and in 1989, they revamped the Sparty mascot. And to introduce this new mascot, 6 billboards were positioned around the East Lansing area announcing his debut at Spartan Stadium on September 16th, 1989. And you can see from this picture that the 1989 version included a full bodysuit, not just the head. And it's much closer to the mascot that we know today. So since the current mascot was introduced in 1989, the MSU Alumni Office, which was formerly the MSU Alumni Association, has had the honor of...
Megan,
Yeah.
you cut out for a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. On the last one, I can redo it.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd go back if you could.
Sure. Sorry about that. My internet's a little iffy. All right, so in 1989, a group came together to revamp the Sparty mascot. And to introduce this new and improved mascot, 6 billboards were put up around the East Lansing area to announce his Spartan Stadium debut on September 16th, 1989. And you can see from this picture that the new 1989 version included a full bodysuit, not just the head. And it's much closer to the mascot that we know today. Since the current mascot was introduced in 1989, the MSU Alumni Office, formerly known as the MSU Alumni Association, has had the honor of overseeing the Sparty mascot program. And you can find out more about the current incarnation of the Sparty mascot program and the current Sparty mascot on the Alumni Office's website. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jenny.
No, you still.
Do I still have more?
You're doing Spartina.
Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. All right, 1 second.
We have to talk about Sparty's girlfriend.
We do have to talk about Sparty's girlfriend.
Very short-lived girlfriend. Yeah, sorry about that. I guess I got a little flustered there. Okay, Spartina. All right, so did you all know that at one time Sparty had a girlfriend? Her name was Spartina, and she appeared for 1 year in the 1945 Wolverine yearbook. And yes, our yearbook was called the Wolverine, but that's a whole other discussion. She was used as a device to highlight different sections of the yearbook that year. Spartina was also a reflection of how campus that year was home to mostly women students, since most of the men students were away fighting in World War II, during World War II. In the beginning of the yearbook, Sparty is depicted in a military uniform here. And in the introductory paragraph, it reads, Sparty, the spirit of Michigan State College, returns on furlough from many battlefronts to introduce the girlfriend, Spartina, to the campus. And while he is away, he expects her to carry on the traditions. So like Sparty, Spartina also wears a Spartan helmet. In each section of the yearbook, she's dressed to reflect that college event or activity. In this case, she's here coming to college, apparently hitchhiking onto campus, which is not recommended. And here's a couple of drawings from the college's subsections. So on the left, you have veterinary medicine. She's here with a little dog. She has a bone. And on the right, you have agriculture. She's reading an ag textbook, and she has a chicken on a leash, I guess, which I don't think is a thing that people do. This is the athletics section. So here Spartina is pictured wearing a Spartan S sweater, a pleated skirt, bobby socks, and saddle shoes, which was typical attire for a college-age woman to wear to athletic events during that time period. So also included in the yearbook are Spartina's handwritten V-mail letters to Sparty, telling him about her experience on campus, how friendly everyone is, how she was interviewed by WKAR. There are 4 letters and a few small additional sentences scattered in the yearbook. These letters and notes are a reflection of the time, such as the one found on page 27. Says, quote, my very last pair of nylons went the way of all stockings in a whirl of Dean's teas and rush parties. I guess I'll have to stick to the white ankle socks I buy at Vans now, which of course means very little to us nowadays. So in another letter, we learn that Sparty has a dog named Random and a little brother named Bud. In that letter, Spartina tells Sparty that she had a very difficult time catching his dog to give him a bath.
And at the bottom of the letter, you can see where Spartina spilled ink on the page because Random the dog jumped up to see what she was doing. And she mentions that she has to go give him a bath now. So even though that the war was won in the spring of 1945 in Europe and was still ongoing in the Pacific Theater, there was no welcome home Sparty picture between him and Spartina. In the 1946 yearbook, Spartina was replaced with a different version of Sparty, and there was no mention of Spartina ever since. She just disappeared. All right, now for real, back to you, Jenny.
Okay. Oh. Darn it. There we go. Ah, no. There we go. Okay, so our last topic for our presentation is now on the Spartan statue. And I notice in my notes, I end up referring to him as Sparty most of the time. So I apologize, not about, I'm referring to the statue, not the mascot. So the idea of the Spartan statue originated in 1932 from then MSC Athletic Director Ralph Young when he was visiting the campus of University of Southern California and saw their Trojan statue. Students attempted to create a Spartan statue, but all attempts failed. Nothing more was done until 1941 when President John Hanna took office and asked the statue's maker to undertake the project. The creator of Sparty was Leonard Youngworth. He became an assistant professor of sculpture at Michigan State College in 1940. Youngworth taught at MSU for 23 years and died in 1963. The creation of the original Sparty began in August of 1943 as a small clay sketch and later became a model that stood 3 feet tall. From there, a full-size scale model was made, which would require 3 months to have the gray clay built over a wooden core. Working in his spare time and also without pay, it took 2 years for Sparty to be finished. Sparty was supposed to be a bronze statue, but it was decided he would be made of ceramic, most likely due to the lack of metal during wartime. That decision resulted with Sparty being the world's largest freestanding ceramic sculpture. Made from terracotta, Sparty was self-glazed and fired locally. The base of Sparty was made of bricks that had outlined pictures representing the major varsity sports on campus. Sparty himself stands at 9 feet 7 inches with a weight of 6,600 pounds, including the base. The structure was 13 feet 10 inches tall. And please note, a lot of the stats that I found for this, there are so many different stats of how tall he was and how much he weighed. These stats came from the 2005 new Spartan Statue dedication program. So it's a rough estimate. I could not find a consensus for the weight and the height. And you can see he's all covered up before the unveiling with John Hanna next to him. Sparty was officially dedicated on June 9th, 1945, located in the intersection of Kalamazoo Street, Chestnut Road, and Red Cedar Road. John Hanna gave a speech entitled The Spartan, with remarks made from Leonard Youngworth and the band playing the fight song. The years that followed after dedication were a bit rough for Sparty. A problem that still occurs to this day is the vandalism of Sparty by the U of M fans. Sandblasting the statue is necessary to remove the graffiti. Even though the statue was salt glazed to help protect it from the elements, the statue could not withstand the harsh winters and the thaws of Michigan. With the necessary sandblasting and mixture of snow and rain, cracks were able to form in the ceramic, which allowed water to seep in, causing the statue to expand and crack. And I mean, this is graffiti. This picture's from 1952. So, I mean, this has been an ongoing thing with U of M to try to vandalize Sparty. Sparty's first major renovation took place in 1988 and lasted over a year. A Save Our Sparty committee was formed that raised around $75,000 for the statue's renovation. Sparty was injected with a plastic cement mixed with dried and crushed cement to solidify the base. And I think some of his, like his fingers or some of his toes had even like fallen off. So they had to still do a lot of work to Sparty. Sparty was rededicated in front of a crowd of 100 people on September 30th, 1989. At the event was George Alderton, who called the former Aggies the Spartans instead of the selected nickname, the Staters. Also present was Irene Youngworth, the widow of the creator, Leonard Youngworth. And also in this picture was former MSU President Walter Adams and MSU President John DiBiagio. Even with the restorations, Sparty was still crumbling away. In the early 2000s, the Sparty project was installed to cast a new replica statue in bronze and to remove and preserve the original statue, build a new plaza, and create an endowment for the long-term care for both of the statues. The project overhaul would cost about $500,000 to complete. The Sparty project met that goal and exceeded it by $75,000. The first step of the Sparty project was to cast a mold of Sparty for it to be used in the making of the new bronze statue. The mold itself was fine, but the workers accidentally ripped off the protective coating of the statue. Workers then had to put on a new protective coating before removing the scaffolding. Unlike the original statue that weighs 6,600 pounds, the new statue weighs only, 1,500 pounds. Along with the new statue, Sparty also got a new location. Before, Sparty's home was located on an island in the intersections of Kalamazoo, Chestnut, and Red Cedar. With the 4 angled crossings, 3 walkways, and 3 stop signs, traffic was messy and congested. To correct this, a new plaza was built at the north end of Demonstration Field, opening up the intersection, but still allowing people a chance to take a photo of Sparty and for the marching band to surround the statue. The original Sparty was relocated inside the Spartan Stadium where it'd be safe from the outside elements and was refinished. The new Spartan statue was unveiled to a crowd of hundreds during Welcome Week on August 25th, 2005. The statue was not supposed to be unveiled until the dedication ceremony in October of that year, but the artist warned that the condensation from leaving Sparty covered would cause discoloration of the statue's exterior. For that reason alone, Sparty was unveiled early. The official dedication ceremony took place October 8th of 2005. And, people still go, again, take their pictures with Sparty. Somebody made a mask for Sparty during our COVID time. So all these icons mean so much to so many people. So thank you for staying for our presentation. Here's just a couple links to the main ones, the University Archives website, which you can get to from the library website. And within our website, we have the On the Banks, the Red Cedar website, which it has thousands of MSU related photographs. We have documents, there's film and audio, all related to MSU history. We have a blog post, we have a blog site where sometimes we just come across an interesting topic and want to share it. And then we also have our Flickr site, which has some similar images that are found in the Red Cedar, but sometimes they are different. So there's different places to look for different photos. And also like on the Red Cedar website, we have exhibits. So a lot of these presentations today were taken from exhibits, but obviously we had to kind of condense them down a bit. So there'll be more information in the exhibits if you so wish. So I'm going to stop. Well, I'll leave this up so people can write it down if they want, but we can take questions now. Ruth Ann.
Okay. While one of you is answering questions, I was wondering if Jenny is got this on the screen, if you could put those links in the chat box.
Oh, okay.
And then people can copy it out of the chat box for themselves. So Ann Donahue had two questions, and I'm gonna ask the second one first because it seems like it's gonna be shorter. And she was wondering if you know what building the dairy students were standing in front of.
Yeah, so I kind of answered this in the Q&A. I'm not entirely sure which building that is, and obviously you noticed I was having some internet problems, so I'm hesitant to try to check during the presentation, but I can definitely check after the presentation and try to find an answer to that question. And
Okay.
I can post that. We have, as Jenny just mentioned, we do have some places like our blog. We also have social media and whatnot. So I was thinking if we could take some of the answers to these questions and we can put them up on our blog for people who may have missed the presentation.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, even if I can't find an answer to the question, something is better than nothing. So I can put that up there as well.
Okay, great. Jenny, the branch, I'm sorry, the on the banks thing that you put in chat accidentally only went to me. not
Yeah,
to
I'm
everybody.
working on it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, sorry.
I couldn't
Okay.
get back and forth to it.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so Ann Donahue also had a question about the rock, wondering why is that a gift? Why is it an appropriate gift? What's its significance? And reading that, I was also thinking, like, do we have any idea what made them think of that?
In all my research, I couldn't find any reference as to why they thought, here's this big rock, let's use it as a gift. I mean, it was 1873. You know, later on there'd be gifts of fountains. I have no idea why. It just came up in the minutes of the seniors found a rock and they want to give it as a gift. Okay.
Well, it certainly is a monumental one. You know, in those pictures where you showed people standing next to it, it's bigger than I think of it being in the present. So it
Yes.
certainly makes an impact.
And for such a simple gift, like you said, it's a rock, but it means so much. And I mean, like I said, people have been taking pictures in front of it since 1875, if not before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
it's
Very soon. Oh, I'm sorry. Very soon, that'll be the 150th anniversary of the rock.
Yes. And you figure out probably many other class gifts, that one's still standing and is still just as important.
Huh. That's amazing.
Okay.
Okay. Maureen asks, was College Hall torn down on purpose or did it collapse?
No, it collapsed.
And then they had, of course, to take away the debris.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question. Those are all the ones that we got in the chat. Wait, I'm going to just open that and make sure. Okay, yes, I think we've gotten all of the questions. I was wondering if the dairy store has kept track of all of the new flavors of ice cream and mixtures of ice cream that they've developed, because some of them are so wild. It strikes me that they could have like a big social media thing of vote on your favorite, flavors that we created here in the dairy store. And a lot of people would want to vote on that. So I was just curious if their records include any kind of keeping track of the different flavors they made up, like the ones for all the Big Ten basketball teams.
That's a good question. I don't think that they've sent us their modern records. And Jenny can correct me if I'm mistaken on that point.
No, I haven't seen anything because they've come to us asking for history information. So we haven't gotten modern stuff yet.
Okay, well, maybe I'll suggest to them that they could do a blog just on how they came up with their flavors. Okay, Paul Schultz asks, this is a new question that just came to the chat box. Based on the elevation and perspective of the panoramic picture of College Hall, plus other pictures that he has seen, was there a hill on campus in the early 1900s, maybe around the older dorms of Mayo and Landon, which I guess he's suggesting if there was there, it's gotten flattened out by now.
Yes.
Okay. A quick answer. Yes, there was a hill.
Yeah, there's older pictures that refer to it as, you know, the bluffs or something similar to that. And you can tell in some of the older pictures, looking at that area of like Landon and Campbell and where those dormitories, the West Circle dorms that are named for women, that area of campus, you can tell that there was a higher elevation. That was Faculty Row. That's where the faculty housing and the president's house was located. And when you see older pictures of those residences, you can definitely tell that it was much higher, sloping down to the Red Cedar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So we used to have a sledding hill, but now we don't.
Yeah, directly into the Red Cedar.
Okay, and I have one last question. Looking at that 1956 Sparty, I was trying to enlarge my image, but it went away. You went to the next slide before I had a chance. Did that 1956 Sparty have a beard?
A beer?
It looked like his chin.
Oh, a beard.
Looked sort of bearded, as opposed to the current Sparty who's
Yeah.
clean shaven.
Yeah, he had stubble.
Cool. I mean, that made me think, well, I don't know if these Spartan warriors of ancient Greece wore beards or if they shaved. So, okay, I'm going to have to look that up myself. Christian John Perino says in the chat box, actually, I'm not sure if you meant that to go to everyone or not. So if you wanted me to share that with everyone, please put that in the chat box. It was only addressed to all of the panelists. Just a comment on Sparty's face. Okay. He says, I feel like Sparty used to have a meaner face. Yeah, I remember I have been here since 1990 at MSU, and I didn't realize that was right after Sparty's makeover to the current Sparty face we have. And I remember a librarian who had been here many years and retired soon after I arrived saying, oh, Sparty used to look so pugnacious. She didn't think that was a very, good scholarly look for our mascot. So, okay, well, it's 1:59. I guess you folks have got about 10 seconds to ask any more questions. And if I don't see any more, thank you so much, Megan and Jenny. This was really great. And even though I have been at MSU for almost 30 years, I learned a lot of new stuff. Oh, Kim Wilginen says the new, Kim, I assume you want this to be shared too. The new Sparty was intended to make him a little less rough and more polished. So they definitely succeeded. So, okay, thanks everybody. I think that we will close down right now and have a good day.